had a flop, so I did not go to Duke. So it's first of all, it's a pleasure. I love coming to Wilson. I grew up in Raleigh, and I always thought Wilson was a great place to go. I used to play in little tennis tournaments around here. Wilson always had great tennis, so I just really enjoyed this place, and I love the fact that it's sort of the seat of eastern North Carolina with so much of its manufacturing and agriculture. It seems to be more, in a lot of respects, what North Carolina is about. I just came back, and thanks for this introduction. And I should just say I am mostly from the regulatory side, being an engineer, and then later I went back to law school because in the regulatory world, I just felt somewhat that I thought at the time it might help. I'm not sure it did, but the fact of the matter is that what a lot of you do is both engineering and some kind of a legal regulatory function, and I think it's a satisfying but difficult endeavor, and the rules that the state and federal government write don't make it any easier. I just came back yesterday from testifying in front of a Senate subcommittee on the Waters of the United States rule, and I thankfully I have enough staff that they brought me up to speed before I got there. But I was driving out here to Wilson, and I noticed under that Waters of the U.S. rule, there's a lot of wetlands out here. So you probably didn't know that, but if that rule goes forward, we're going to be busy issuing 404 permits to you guys. So I hope you all keep track of those various rules. It turns out that the previous week I was up in D.C. testifying in front of a House subcommittee on the EPA's 111D rule, which has to do with the regulation of greenhouse gases from various energy sources. You need to stay very close to that as well. It's certainly a breathtaking step. Fortunately, in North Carolina, because of some of the efforts that you all are undertaking, we, in fact, are well on the way to meeting President Obama's stated goal, that is a 30% reduction in GHGs from 2005. North Carolina will get there without the help of the federal government. We're well on that way. We were the first to pass legislation on which we call the Clean Smokestacks Act, which had the effect of shutting down the least efficient coal-fired units in North Carolina. It also had the effect of increasing the fraction of natural gas-generated electricity in North Carolina, so much so that we're 20%. We've made already a 20% reduction from 2005 levels, and if you look at the IRP for Duke, and you look at the natural gas pipeline that's coming down very near here, those will serve to achieve that additional 10% by 2030. So whether that rule passes or not, despite all the legal infirmities of the rule, whatever happens, we will achieve that President Obama's goal in any event, which I think we can all be happy about. We've maintained relatively reasonable electricity prices and made these kinds of reductions. And of course, much of that is due to the free enterprise market developing natural gas through hydraulic fracturing and made natural gas production and oil production in America competitive once more, and it's been an exciting time in the energy field. So now that I've talked about my energy policy side, we can go over to the environment. And when I saw I was going to get a chance to come here, and of course, Greer Tidwell has known me for quite a while, and Greer Tidwell is one of the few representatives of a regulated entity that I was always scared to go into a meeting with. Okay, and that typically it's not a big deal. We talk about the regulations, and we can get on with the requirements, and we get a permit for them, and off we went. But the problem was with Greer, it was like coming into a room and bidding against yourself, because we would talk about, well, you'll need to make these kinds of reductions, and he'll say, no, we want to go beyond that. We want to get lower, and then I'd look like a fool. I was embarrassed. I said, Greer, that's my job, but no, he would always want to go farther. So it was always a little bit off-putting to see Greer and see how low he was willing to go. Sustainability is not regulatory. Excuse me. And I thought about, how do we describe sustainability? Sustainability is actually not very clearly understood by various people. And I was thinking last week, one of my children, who's now, of course, all my children are gone. Both kids are gone, which is it's always sad, but I'm getting over it. But one of my children was kind of a dilettante in school, and so he took classes like Buddhism. Now, why is Dr. Vandervaart talking about, or I'm about to embark upon, talking about Buddhism in a sustainability context? And the reason is, it's clear, and the reason is sustainability is like nirvana. Now, what's nirvana? Nirvana is a state at which you are no longer bound by certain mortal, I'll say it, infirmities, vices. You're released from those wants. And when you achieve that, you've achieved nirvana, and you're considered to be released. In a sense, that's what Greer Tidwell is. When he came in and he assumed the lotus position in these meetings that we had, he was not bound by any regulations. He was released from regulations because he was seeking some higher consciousness, some higher sense of consciousness. So that's where we are. That's what this is. We're all here to achieve nirvana at some level. Now, I hope, for the sake of North Carolinians, especially those in the eastern part of the state, that you haven't yet been released from the feeling of generating a profit. I hope that that's still there, and I don't want you to get too far from that, because I want you to continue hiring our people, and if you've got a little left over, paying your fair share in taxes. So it's a kind of an abbreviated nirvana, let's say. So you could ask yourself, well, there are private industries here. If it makes sense from a bottom line, from a cost basis, why wouldn't they be doing this anyway, right? I mean, this is just rational behavior. If you've got a plant general manager that's not interested in saving money, then he's not going to be a plant general. I hope he won't be a plant general manager for very much longer. So you feel like, well, what's the use? I mean, they know their plant better than we do, and so they just ought to get on with saving money. But it isn't quite that simple. We have, there's first of all, there's a lot of synergy that can be divined from other people's experiences, and I think that's what meetings like this should promote. I'm sure Greer Tidwell could still learn something from NACO or from Cummings or any of the rest of you who have found out ways to increase your production without increasing your consumption. So it's educational, and it's synergistic. And so then the question is why in the world should a governmental agency be involved? You know, I mean, you got the best and the brightest working in these. Why do you need Diener? And the answer is, again, of course, that we're kind of a clearinghouse for this, and we got Ted Bush, and we got various programs that have gotten to the point where they have learned from other people, and so they act as a conduit for further improvements in your day-to-day operation. So that's, I hope that is a function that we fulfill, and if it isn't, maybe we need to talk about Ted Bush. Is Ted here yet? There's Ted. Well, yep, so duly noted, right, Ted? But I do want to I do want to make sure first of all I'm supposed to say that, and it's got Bridgestone America's First. So Greer, I'm going to go ahead and say congratulations and thank you for your work. He's always trying to show me up. Thank you for Cummins. Who is our representative from Cummins? There you go. Thank you, sir. And NACO, there he is, a fellow Dutchman. So that's and I know if you're anything like my parents, you're certainly cost conscious. So that's always good. I used to have to eat dirt. No, that's so what I did want to touch on, you know, I don't want to go through the whole the ESI program. I think you all can certainly learn about it as much as you want. I think the main thing I want to urge you all is the fact that you all are seeking to go beyond regulatory requirements. You're putting yourselves out in front of people, in front of everybody when you join ESI, and what we want to do is make sure that that's a positive for you beyond just the savings that you should be achieving. And it's not a trivial, and I recognize this is not a trivial sort of a pure PR type of arrangement. You know, and I'm sure some of you all have thought about this. What if I join this and then something goes wrong and now I have to be demoted or something from one level? Ooh, I keep hitting this thing. One level to another. And I think, you know, first of all, I think you know, it's a case-by-case analysis, but I'm pretty appreciative of anybody who's willing to say, look, I'm going to put these additional requirements. They're non-regulatory, yeah, I get it, but they're additional requirements you're imposing on yourself, hopefully for cost reasons, but also for actual environmental and sustainability reasons. So I just think it's exciting that somebody would take this on. I think ultimately you're going to be happier, your employees are going to be happier, your community is going to be happier, Don Vandervaart's going to be happier, and you might achieve your abbreviated nirvana. So I'm not going to bore you all with anything more other than to urge you to take advantage of the tour that's going to go on this afternoon, where I think Greer Tidwell is going to be almost unbearable in his pride, showing you what they do here in Wilson. But obviously, you all are all working to do things that we haven't asked you to do, and we'd like for you to take the benefits of that by, in those cases where you want, join our ESI, your Environmental Stewardship Initiative, where you can get recognized by us. So I thank you very much, and keep up the good work. So. So should I introduce Mr. Van Voort? No introductions necessary.
Thank you, Secretary Van Voort. Today I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Michael Darr. He's the plant manager of Bridgestone's Wilson Passenger Tire Plant. He's been with Bridgestone 17 years, starting at their Aiken County, South Carolina plant for 10 years before being named operations manager of the Wilson plant in 2008. He's been plant manager since 2014. Michael has an industrial engineering degree from Geneva College and an MBA from the University of South Carolina. He's lived in Wilson for 7 years with his wife and 2 daughters. Michael.
Well, I fear I'll be no Greer Tidwell, but I'll do my best. As we get set up, I'll just start by saying it's an honor and a privilege to stand on this stage representing the 2,125 team members out at the Bridgestone Wilson plant, and really representing over 35,000 team members here in the Americas that work for Bridgestone and all we stand for the environment and all we do. So as we share our journey today, really my goal is just to tell you that we're still on that journey. Give you some highlights about us, what we've done for environmental sustainability, and where we're going, and maybe give you guys some lessons that you guys can take back to apply in your environment. So first, a little bit about Bridgestone. I'm not going to assume you know everything about Bridgestone. A little bit of history about our plant here in Wilson. The plant was built in 1974, made our first tire in March, so just celebrated 40th anniversary last year, 41 years this year. But we have a very large facility, as the tour group got to see this morning, and those on the tour this afternoon will see. 60 acres under roof, so an incredibly big facility. Not only does it extend beyond that, but it goes outside. A little bit about what we do. We make about 32,000 tires each and every day. And those tires, we're going to talk about what kinds of tires we make in a second. One of the aspects about our plant we're really proud of, that, and we talk about a sustainable workforce beyond just environment, is that we've been 41 years without a single layoff. I'm not sure any manufacturer can say that in the state of North Carolina. Very proud of that. A union-free facility, and that's been one big reason why. But we've been very, very glad to be part of the Wilson Committee. We're a large contributor in United Way, very involved in the committee in many different things. So a little bit about our products. We make tires, as I said, we got 7 different rim sizes. No Bridgestone plant in the world makes as many different rim sizes as our plant does, from 15-inch all the way to 22. In October of this year, if everything continues, we'll make our 400 millionth tire in this facility. In 2013, we achieved zero waste to landfill, and that'll be a highlight of some more things I talk about. And one of the special things about the Wilson plant is we're the only North American plant that make a tire called a run-flat tire, and I'll highlight that a little bit more. So who do we sell to? About 60% of our tires leave our factory, go straight to OE manufacturers. Toyota, GM, Honda, and Chrysler are the big 4 that we supply. If you own a Toyota Camry, likely your tire was made in Wilson, North Carolina. We supply all those for the #1 selling car in America. If you own a GM Escalade on the other end of the spectrum, a 20-inch tire, 22-inch tire, that's made here in Wilson, North Carolina. So we make very varied tires. 17 inches is our biggest volume. Our plant, when it was built in 1974, was primarily making 13 and 14-inch tires. Today, we don't make any of those tires. The tire market's completely changed in terms of sizing for vehicles, and our plant has adapted to overcome that challenge. So what do we make? Mostly car tires and some SUVs. Some product lines you may have heard of are Destination Tires, our Turanza, we make the Firestone Firehawk, and our most recent line that we're proud of is our Bridgestone Ecopias, which are our fuel-efficient tire. We'll highlight in a minute. So let's kind of talk about environmental. We have a tremendous mission as a Bridgestone plant to focus on our environmental. This is our mission statement as a company, not just our plant. But our goal is to leave our environment better than we can hope for in the future generations and current. So let's talk about what that really means. That's a lofty goal, but it's got to have some real footprints. So there's really 3 prongs to that. The first is our In Harmony with Nature, our educational programs, teaching not only our team members, but those in our community how to treat the environment better. And we're going to show an example of how we do that at our plant. Secondly, which all of us are a part of, kind of the traditional definition of sustainability is recycling. Okay? And that's a big part of what we do. And a third specific that the Secretary mentioned is the reduction of CO2. Our company has very aggressive goals worldwide for CO2 reduction. So not only does it affect our environment, but we start from the beginning, from our suppliers and vendors, the types of products that we bring in, to our operations, to the products. To achieve this long-term vision of this in harmony with nature and a sustainable society. So how are we doing that at the plant? Well, the first thing to reduce our environmental footprint is to not make as much waste and scrap. So as a plant, from 2002, our plants reduced our waste and scrap internal to the plant by a little over 50%. We started around 6% back in 2002, and this year to date, we're under 3% as a plant. So that's the first thing, right? Don't waste internally. The second thing we talk about is products. We want our products to have an environmentally positive footprint. The first one I want to talk about is our Ecopia tire. How would you like to buy a tire that will pay for itself 2 times over in fuel savings? That's better for the economy. You can imagine all the CO2 that it reduces. So our Ecopia line is our technological innovations in a tire that allow that tire to get more fuel efficient, save you basically dollars at the gas tank. That tire itself will have 8% improved wear life, so it's going to go longer before you have to recycle that tire. So that's our new innovative tire that we're building in the Wilson plant. The second kind of tire that Bridgestone is building in the Wilson plant is our Drive Guard. We have made the run flat tire for several years. A Drive Guard is the next generation of that. How is that environmentally friendly? Well, think about not having a spare tire. That's one more product that you don't have in your car. That's less weight in your car, so you're not putting as much weight in your car. It gives you a peace of mind of safety and security that if you break down anywhere you break down, you can go 50 miles at 50 miles an hour with a hole the size of my fist in the side of your tire and not have any issues. So that's an environment and safety concern. Those new tires are being pioneered at our plant in Wilson. Now, everyone at some point is going to wear their tire out, right? We like that because we get to buy some more tires. But what do we do with those tires? Well, on your seats is a bag that you can take with you, and it's called our Tires Forward program. But we as a company want to be cognizant and ready to take those tires for every tire that we sell, that we can try to recycle those and repurpose those tires. We're not just expecting those to go other ways. We are actively involved in that. Greer likes to say this, but back in the 1970s, it took 16 tires to drive 50,000 miles. And today you can do that on a set of 4. So what did we do with those 16 tires? 15 went to landfill and 1 was used as a tire swing. So today, all those tires can be recycled. We want to be a part of that as a company. So it's not only what we do in the plant, the products we make that can last longer, but at the end of their life, what can we do to make sure that those tires are sustainable as well? So let's talk about the Bridgestone plant specifically itself and some of the certifications we've achieved and how we've achieved those. One of the ones I'm not going to highlight with some slides, but we are part of the ESI program. And I would highly recommend, if you're considering you're on the fence, is that a good group to join? Absolutely. It'll make you better. Go above and beyond like the Secretary talked about. I want to start with our habitat. We talked about the fact that one of the cornerstones of our objectives is to educate. Well, we happen to have a large part of our plant that's forest and some that are fields. And we've used that in the last several years by certifying it as a corporate lands for learning and habitat to use it for education for a lot of school children. So just last Friday, we had over 250 children participate in the Area 4 Envirothon at our facility. And once again, it rained. And so you can see all the school kids out here, and if it really wasn't a rainy day, you'd see lots of children outside, but right now they're kind of like ants inside the tent. Okay? But we brought those kids out. They did the competition at the plant from all counties, all the way from Durham to Goldsboro. All the regions came in, and they spent time at a tire factory, and they didn't even realize they were there because they're out in the wilderness. Too many people think a tire plant is a smokestack industry. We don't have a single smokestack. If you've been to the tour this morning, you realize it's a pretty clean environment. We're very proud of that. So this is how we utilize our facility to educate those of future generations. So some of the achievements we've had. We were the first company to achieve the dual ISO 50001 and Silver SEP certification. Now, I want to commend our Rocky Mount partner here for Cummins because they're only one of 10 companies now that have that dual recognition. So 2 of the panelists say we'll have that. But ISO 50001 is an energy certification. And that's something that anybody could go after. But to achieve the silver SCP certification, you have to have reduced your energy by 15% over the course of the last 5 to 10 years. So it's not just saying we have programs in place to monitor energy and improve, but you've demonstrated over time. So if that's a certification that you'd be interested in, we would love to help you achieve that. We can give you the steps that we took. Now, kind of the one that's kind of the most famous about it is the fact that not only were we zero to landfill, but we're the first company in the world to achieve Underwriter Laboratories certification for that. Well, what does that mean? Anybody can claim to be zero to landfill, right? But what Underwriters Laboratory came in and said was a couple things. One, they came into our plant and they said, yes, you truly are not sending anything to landfill. But they looked at our waste streams and said, okay, everything that you're recycling, it is the best and greatest use of that. Because ultimately, 14% of what we avoid the landfill, we send to a waste-to-energy incinerator. So it doesn't go to landfill, it goes to a waste-to-energy incinerator. We could send 30% of our materials to the waste-to-energy incinerator, still say we're zero to landfill, but that's not the best and available use of our products that are byproducts. So what they came in audit says, we agree that the things you're sending to the incinerator have no other purpose at this time. Now, we are, as the Secretary mentioned, and Greer's on the forefront of this, we're not accepting that 14% is good enough. Greer just came back from Germany, where our partners with Waste Management have talked to us about a company over there that's found a way to separate and potentially take something we have to send to the incinerator and reuse that. So we're literally almost going to the ends of the earth, maybe not that far, but to find ways to get that 14% closer and closer to zero that go to the incinerator. So nothing at our plant. So how much is that? We generate 26 tons of waste every day. So it is no small feat to do that, to make sure none of it goes to landfill. So since 2013, February, or really 2 years now, we haven't had a single trip to the solid waste landfill here in Wilson County. I'm sorry, Denise. So just an example of, just one example of what we've done to help repurpose some of our products. So we had a Kaizen project. We have something called pin vents, and those that are on the tour saw those on the tire, but basically when you cure a tire, the air pushes some of those out, and those are little fuzzy things you might find on a tire every now and then. Well, we have to trim those off. And what do we do with them? Well, before, when we weren't recycling, they went in the trash. One of the problems is it's up on kind of a mezzanine where this stuff is created. It's hard to get down. So one of the ways to help people make the right choice is to make it the easy choice. So our Kaizen team looked at this problem and said, what can we do to make a difference? And so they developed a system where they can basically sweep it into a funnel, and that funnel goes down to a large bag, and that large bag is already set up and designed for a forklift to come and get it, take it away. And we now recycle almost 21 tons a year for that. Now this is a really neat recycling because these pin vents are taken to a third party, they're ground down to a very small gauge, they come back to our plant and they go back into our mixer to make rubber again at our own plant. So there's a complete sustainable cycle within our factory. Now we talk about cost and profit, okay? So this is the last 4 years for our plant. Basically showing on that middle line, are we making money or losing money in the process of trying to be a sustainable manufacturer? And you can see that it's really kind of almost even. Last year we were slightly below the line. But we believe as a company that's a well worth investment. With the commodities market that recycling is, that could change a month from now. And as more and more folks recycle, which we encourage, I'm sure that'll make the commodities market even tougher. But we're committed to making sure that nothing's going to go back to the landfill. So it can definitely be a moneymaker for you, but I'm not going to guarantee it's that nirvana that it'll always be a moneymaker for us. So you as a leader of a company have to commit to what you're going to do to sustain. All right, so we can't do this without our team members. I mentioned we have a lot of team members. You have to get your team members involved. Obviously it starts with what we talked about first is management support. So one of the ways we get our team members involved is our company newsletter is called Our Pride. Every quarter we have a special environmental pride with highlights of successes, things people can do to help out. We get that message out to our team members. They're always coming up with different ideas for us to help improve our recycling program. So one thing I didn't really highlight yet, but one of the keys to doing that is you got to have a good partner. Because we're really good at making tires. But we weren't necessarily in the beginning of this game great at recycling or knowing who to find out. And we've partnered with Waste Management, that's our contractor for Waste Management, and they have gone out and found people and investigated. They're the ones that brought us this company in Germany. They find these partners that we think we could take, what is this waste? Let's see if we can find somebody that can use it, buy it, turn it into something else so it doesn't go to landfill. And so they've been a valuable partner in our ability to really find that. So make sure you have a partner to do those things that you're not great at, right? We all are great at making our own product, but it may not be something you're great at. Find a partner that can do that. But I would just encourage you as fellow leaders, as a summary, that take the holistic view of sustainability, okay? Your vendors, what they send you. Are you having to recycle it? Can they do it with less packaging? What does it take to reduce that? Then inside your factory, how do you reduce the materials you use to make less waste? How does the product you make itself, how can it work longer? How can it be recycled better at the end of its life? Take that holistic view all the way across. You've got to have partnerships. Without corporate support, like from Greer and from all the way to our parent company in Japan who are behind us 100%, you'll struggle. So make sure you have that top leadership support. And of course, our governmental agencies are key to that. But lastly, your team members have to be involved. Okay? It takes all sides of that circle. So I would say that there's lots of ways you can measure success and sustainability. You know, how much money you make on what you sell, maybe what's your waste reduction, whether you're zero waste to landfill. But I'll leave you with this. Our goal here in Wilson is to turn our neighbors into fans. And we do that by doing all these things. And if we turn our neighbors into fans, then we will feel like we're successful at sustainability. So with that, that's what I'd like to share our story today. Thanks.
So the fulsome praise that you gave me isn't just for me, it's for a collective, unified team effort that brought this about. This was 9 months in the making, and it's involved a number of people that I'd like to personally thank, and most of them are on this little board here, and you saw them on the rotating sign earlier. My partner in crime throughout this, other than John here, who's the president of NC Eastern Alliance, is the gentleman at the back there, Stephen Pierce. So I'd like to thank Stephen for partnering with me throughout this to make sure that this was a success it was today. And it's great to see so many of you out here, both from industry and from what we call key influencers. And the key influencers are anybody, again, like the partners that we've got here. Michael's just referenced partnerships and the importance of that. A core word within our business, and we see this being for the future of the industry, is collaboration. It's absolutely vital that we collaborate across the industry. WSTI as a company don't believe in competition. What we believe in is looking at to see how we can partner with companies, ally with companies and organisations for the betterment, as I think a number of the speakers have said today, not just for manufacturing and industry, but for the communities that we all operate in. This isn't just about sustainability in the environment, it's about creating sustainable communities. And the industrial manufacturing space, which is now starting to revive in this country and in this state of ours, and don't be fooled by my accent, by the way. I am now a North Carolinian, although I've been told I need to be 3 generations before I can officially claim that. And again, I'm going to reference this gentleman here, Greer Tidwell, who taught me that it's not just saying y'all, it's if there's more than several people in the audience, it's all y'all. Is that correct? I don't know whether that's a Tennessee slant or whether it's ours. I'm just going to click onto the presentation in 1 second. Okay. My role today is to introduce, reintroduce Michael. You've already had the presentation from Michael Dahl, the plant manager at Bridgestone, and also 2 of the other major manufacturers in John's area, North Carolina, Eastern Alliance area. If you'd like to step up, gentlemen, there's Calvin Balance from Cummins, Rocky Mount Energy Plant, and Wim van Dam from NMHG, or NACO Material Handling Group in Greenville. And as I said, this part here, we're going to have a question and answer session where we're going to be asking questions specifically of Calvin and Wim. Michael's obviously given you a thorough understanding of what Bridgestone is about, both at a corporate level and a local level. And then we're going to open questions to the floor. So if you've got any questions, be prepared to ask them. If you haven't, start thinking about them, because I don't want to be going all quiet at the end. Just a very quick bit, as I said, my name is Martin Crompton. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development at WSTI. We're based in Sanford, but we operate out of Greenville. And I must spend 80% of my life in the Eastern Bloc, which is why one of my number one alliance partners, or our alliance partners, is John Chafee and the Eastern Alliance. Very, very grateful to everybody from the Wilson Arena today. I'm going to, Ryan Simmons, who's the President of the Chamber, Jennifer Lance, who's the Executive Director for WEDC, and Vance, who I've met for the first time today, who's the Chairman of WEDC. We've also got what I regard as a sustainability champion in our midst, a national within the community college, which is Dr. Rusty Stevens, who will be introducing himself at the end. That, again, as I said earlier, is about how we create alliances within communities, and then how we can try to pull manufacturers together with the organisers and key influencers in the community to build something of value. This isn't an opportunity for me to do a sales pitch, by the way, although I am head of business development and both my president and my chairman are here today. But I will just very, very quickly, this is one slide. We regard ourselves as what we call a next generation provider of integrated and strategic solutions. But the core of our business is collaboration, and that's what this is about today. Obviously, we've been involved in industrial services for many years. Material handling is a key part of that, but sustainability is at the heart of everything we do. And I feel fortunate enough to work for two gentlemen who've seen that as an opportunity going forward. I'm going to use the Secretary's awakening or Buddha theme again, saying that there is an awakening happening within industry, and certainly within North Carolina's manufacturing. And I would actually say that's a quickening. You could have held this sort of an event 2-3 years ago and would probably have had 2 men and a dog in the audience. Today we've got upwards of 200 people. Right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our esteemed panel. First of all, Wim van Dam, who's the plant manager at NACCO Material Handling, and probably speaks better English than me because he's from Holland, where they speak very good. They pronounce the words better than we do. We've also got Calvin Barnes, as I mentioned. He's the plant manager at Cummins Rocky Mount plant, or Rocky Mount Engine plant, to use the correct terminology. And I think we all know Michael by now. These are three, not just sizable plants within the East, they are sizable plants globally. We've got world-class leaders in manufacturing and in sustainability. And I feel privileged to be on stage representing my company with these three gentlemen today. So without further ado, I'm going to transfer to this mic. And go through the questions. And whilst we put can everybody hear me? Whilst we put the questions on, there's going to be a brief backdrop so that for those who are more visually orientated, you can see as well as listen. Okay, Wim, just going through what we've talked about in the last few weeks. How does NMHG's integrate environmental sustainability into your production system?
Okay. Everybody hear me? Okay. You know, environmental results are quite easy a result of everything else we do. We have a production system that sustains safety, cost, safety, quality, delivery, cost, morale, and environment. All these 6 pillars are very, very part of our production system. And really the environmental results are a result of everything else we do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It would be actually remiss of me, just so that for people who may not have heard of NMHG before, if you could just give a little bit of background on the products that you see on screen here.
Yes. NMHG, NACCO Materials Handling Group, is a global company, a global leader in the development of and manufacturing of innovative high performance industrial lift trucks. Maybe the 2 makes we have are better known, Yale and Hyster. That's the 2 brands we sell our product of into the world. I've been a plant manager in the Netherlands, one of our older plants, for the last 7 years, and I came to North Carolina in October last year to run the plant here in the US. We have 4 plants in the US, 2 are component plants, 2 are forklift truck assembly plants. We produce electric forklift trucks in Greenville, about 150 a day, and we have a big growth plan. So the expectation is that the Greenville plant will output this volume quite a bit more in the next few years. You know, I've written it down here. When it comes to environmental policies in our company, it's the zero-emission electric trucks that we actually produce in Greenville in North Carolina. All our electric equipment that we build is built in North Carolina. We do produce also trucks with a normal internal combustion engine, a truck that runs out on diesel or on other fuels. We've just recently purchased, in December actually, NMHG has purchased a company that has alternative power sources. We will be an integrated supplier to have more than just normal fossil fuel trucks and electric trucks in the next few years. Globally, we have manufacturing facilities, more than 13 locations in the world to produce product, and we have sustainable manufacturing facilities and production facilities within that. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Wim. I noticed that you've got a couple of members of your team here today who are on something called the NMHG Environmental and Energy Sustainability Committee, which is quite a mouthful. Ken Sims and I think I saw John Nubia here as well who work with the plan. Could you tell us a little bit about that steering committee and what its specific goals and objectives are?
Yeah, within our 29 KPIs we run our plants on, or how we measure our plants, 6 of them are based on our environmental initiatives. So we measure a lot, and then when you measure something, you know how you do, and when you do improvement projects, and you know all this is a journey. It's not something that happens today or tomorrow. It's a continuous journey of improvement, and by measuring our energy consumption, our power consumption, we are able to understand how we can do better every day. So we have a lot of equipment in our plants. A very good photograph on the right side. We have a lot of load management systems in our plants, and we actually analyze that data to the point where on a weekly meeting we actually talk about our results and look what we can do better next week. So it's little steps, but all little steps make a big step if you look at over a number of years.
Okay, thank you for that. You mentioned earlier that Greenville is not the only plant within NMHG's empire, and you've also happened to have your corporate headquarters for the Americas just behind the plant. So I just wanted to ask you, what sort of role does senior leadership at NMHG play in regards to environmental sustainability?
Environmental sustainability is part of our environmental health and safety team. Really, on the one hand, it's about our products that we produce. Product designs which consider the environment, and fuel cells from Nuvera is a new addition to that. So we have a lot in house to make products that go well in the environment. When it goes to our management systems, our committee looks after the results and the promises we make to our own people and to our stakeholders when it comes to improvement. It is about prevention of pollution. It's about going beyond compliance. That's why we are also part of the ESI. And it is the continuing improvement of environmental health and safety performance. And as I said, it's not that difficult in our place to ask for money if you want to improve something. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to health and safety, that's why certainly for safety we put an environmental as the 2 ends of our production system.
And just as an add-on to that, then, we've worked with you as a business with WSI for many years now. Would you say there's been an increase, or what I referred to as a quickening earlier, as far as sustainability within NMHG, that it's being led from the top?
Yeah, definitely. Our systems that allow us to measure our power usage and our energy usage. If there's technology around that you can do this very well, and if you have that, you get aware of what you can improve. Really, measuring is a good way of continuous improvement.
Okay, and then finally, and I know this is dear to your heart because you had great success back in Nijmegen in Holland, which I believe is the oldest plant you were telling me in NMG's empire. How important is employee engagement to achieving corporate sustainability goals?
We have a principle which we call neighborhoods. Really, it's like a village, and neighborhoods within that village. Let's call the village our plant and the neighborhoods production areas in our plant. We bring it down to our most important people to actually continuously improve, and that's the people on the shop floor. They can actually make that difference when it comes to waste reduction, and this waste reduction is not just environmental, but the result is cost reduction. But if you eliminate waste in whatever you do, you can actually make a lot more money. So we connect up cost to waste elimination. That's what we do. But we use that by actually going into the neighborhoods in our factory to the floor, in which we actually spend an hour per week on discussing anything we can improve using our own people.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Ben. I'm now going to move on to our second panel guest, Calvin Balance, as I said earlier, from Rocky Mount Engine Plant for Cummins. So Calvin, just give us a little bit of background again on the plant specifically and the sort of products that you produce there for those in the audience who are not aware.
Rocky Mount Engine Plant has about 1,800 employees that has a property size of about 1.2 million square feet. We produce mid-range diesel engines for agricultural, construction, marine, and all types of various applications at approximately 650 a day and approximately 150,000 engines a year for mid-range duty applications.
Okay, thank you. And specifically to sustainability we're mentioning today, how did Cummins develop it's got what I regard as one of the more comprehensive environmental sustainability plans. How did that come about and how long did it take? What was your journey, if you can describe for the audience?
It started back in the early 2000s when Cummins started to sort of hit and miss around in trying to improve the environment. But in 2006, Cummins made a statement that it would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by about 25% by a certain year in 2010. And this was all without a true comprehensive program. But in 2009, the company introduced a Energy Champions program where it started to gain employee participation. And it trained about 50 employees in each facility to look at specific areas where it could improve energy consumption. And during a 2012-2013 timeframe, right along just about a clear 2-year period, Cummins made a decision that would really look at those things that affected the environment. What are the biggest opportunities in the environment that we could improve on?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there's some pretty impressive numbers at the bottom. I'm not going to ask you to go into detail with these, but there's something, obviously, we deal with a lot of manufacturers in the state. Whenever we put together any programs or projects with regards to manufacturers and corporate companies, whilst you might produce engines or forklift trucks or tires, at the end of the day, we're all in business to make profit. So I think Secretary Van der Vaart mentioned this as well. There's an element of investment in what you're doing as far as sustainability, but there's payback financially as well as payback environmentally. Is that something that you would say Cummins has taken advantage of?
Yes, there's a definitely gain, but during that 2-year time frame, Cummins identified that it would focus on water, waste, and energy and greenhouse gases. And Cummins partnered with the Department of Energy to implement a true energy management system. And at the same time, they wanted to meet the ISO 50001 and SEP, objectives. And with that being said, Cummins focused on its largest energy producer, which happened to be the Rocky Mount Engine Plant.
Is that globally or in the state?
Well, it did it globally, but it started with a pilot program, and Rocky Mount Engine Plant was a pilot program.
Okay.
And at the time, there was no comprehensive energy system in the Rocky Mount plant, and it went through the process of trying to establish the 50,001 and SEP. And one of the things that really helped the Rocky Mount Engine Plant in that admission was the fact that it had already been certified in ISO 9001, 14001, and OSHA 18001. So those types of certifications were instrumental and helped the plant to achieve some of the objectives because we were familiar with certifications all along, and running parallel with those that made the 50,001 process so much easier.
I'm glad you touched on 50,001. Michael mentioned this earlier, that two of the three of you on stage have actually got ISO 50,001. There's 10 in the state currently, out of 800 manufacturers, 100,000 square feet and above. There's a third one actually in John's region, which is KN, who were looking to join us today, but unfortunately David, the plant manager, got called away. Could you tell us a little bit more, again, for the benefit of those in the audience who are manufacturers who've not gone down that journey, about achieving ISO 50001 and cost versus benefits, and basically what sort of approach that you use to deliver that result?
Well, one thing you mentioned earlier is investment. It was about a $250,000 total investment at the Rocky Mount Engine Plant. And there were 5 key areas that we focused on. One being staff development from an environmental management system perspective. 2 was the preparation for the SEP and the ISO audits that would be conducted. Next was the technical audits that we would have to occur. And 4th was a monitoring and metering system. And that monitoring and metering system is what we phrase building management system. It's a series of sensors that monitor all aspects of the building, from climate to simple motors that control run various devices. And the 5th being we felt that a third-party audit would be significant in the process itself, and it proved really well because there was actually 11-month payback in every in return with $750,000 annual savings, and really significant. And it left the facility with a building management system, we say BMS, and it really helps us sustain where we're going and continuously improve in our processes.
And has that set a standard within Cummins plants worldwide? Is that something that's rolling out as a standard now?
Yes, because as you mentioned, not as far as statistics, but during this 2014 timeframe, Cummins set some key objectives in reducing energy by 25% and greenhouse gases by 27% by 2015, and water usage by 33% at 15 sites by 2020, and increased recycling from 88 to 95%, and achieve the zero disposal at 30 sites by 2020.
Okay, thank you for that. And then finally, and we've got it as your catchphrase on here almost, redefining efficiency. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is in the 215 tour that you participated in?
When we think about redefining efficiency, is the fact that we're constantly looking at ways to improve, utilizing the energy management system along with our building management system to continuously improve the community by which we work and live, and to engage employees. We've got an initiative where we ask every employee in the facility of about 2,000 to donate at least 4 hours of volunteer work, and one of 3 key areas is the environmental. So we do from the high level down to just park cleanups and everything that you can imagine.
Okay, thank you very much in that. And I think it would be very remiss of us if we didn't at least discuss the Secretary of Environment today's ESI program. And I know there's a number of key individuals from ESI. I've worked with Scott at the back there, Scott Pfister, for a number of years now, and Ted Bush, who's the divisional director. These guys share our passion and purpose, as John mentioned earlier, not just for manufacturing, but for driving sustainability into manufacturing for the benefit of you guys and the community. Could you, Michael and Wim, just talk a little bit to that and the importance of environmental sustainability for, again, those who aren't members, and I'll be directing you to the people in ESI at the end just to see if we can connect you.
Well, the main thing I would just talk about in terms of ESI is it's a partnership, and it's about going above and beyond. And once you're in that group, you can learn from those other companies, and so it's a great way to benchmark and learn from each other. Okay, obviously there's higher standards and things you have to meet. The fact that they come in and audit your facility to kind of give that third-party view, all those things help make you better. That's the main thing I would talk about, is that's a supportive agency. It's a great government-private business partnership.
Okay.
You know, I always think that, that there is always something to learn, and I believe that if you're humble enough to say that you don't know everything yet, you can probably learn a lot from just going to see other companies and connect up to other companies. So these sort of initiatives are very, very important to do that. So for us, it's not just to tell other people what we do, but to learn from what other companies do. And if you're humble enough to do that, you learn a lot.
Exactly, and a lot of what today's about obviously is hearing about best practices and the benefits that these manufacturers have accrued, and then sharing those amongst the peer group. The whole intention of these presentations and events, as John said, is not just to be a one-off. The intention behind this is to move it forward to be a full collaborative process, not just across the Eastern Alliance, so John, right across North Carolina. So very appreciative of you coming in today, gentlemen, and explaining that to people who might not be as far along the journey of sustainability as yourselves. One other one I'd like to give a heads up today as far as our collaboration partners, who I feel are also a great support of manufacturing in North Carolina, is the NC State. And again, I still don't quite get my head around the blues and the light blues and the reds, but I know there's a bit of a competitive edge there that I think the Secretary referenced earlier and probably disavowed half the audience. It's Industrial Extension Service out of NC State, which we believe do a great job, and I'm sure John would back me on that as well. They've got 12 regional managers that work across all the manufacturers in North Carolina, and they're there to support. If you haven't heard of them, if you're not connected, and I'm sure everybody in the audience has, we believe that they're a great support for manufacturing. And they've actually got their own environmental wing. I'm very delighted to see Anna Mango here today from E3. We do a lot of crossover work with them, but again, it's about collaboration, so we can pull together for the greater benefit. And I'll give a little heads up to Cheryl Smith over there, who actually runs the regional managers and the marketing for IES, and she's managed to clone herself, I can only imagine, because she does more work than I do in a year in probably a week, or that's what she told me the last time she saw me. So thank you again for being here, guys, everybody from IES and ESI. Okay, that's the official question and answer session. I'm going to open the floor now to anybody and everybody who would like to have a question. I think we've got some. I'm going to ask for volunteers. I'm looking at my key account managers. Could Chip and Ryan step forward and grab one of these mics, please? Are these on, Ron? Thank you. Which gives you an extra couple of minutes to think of a question for these three gentlemen while you've got them as a captive audience. Can you get all the mics on? Don't be whispering, sweetheart. All right, first question.
Yes, this is for Michael. Is Bridgestone, does it have a plan to use the incinerator to produce energy? Or are you already doing that maybe?
No, so let me clarify that. We send our waste to an incinerator in Virginia that we cannot find a better use for. So 14% travels to Virginia. That incinerator turns that heat into energy. So they turn it into a positive. But we do not have an incinerator on site, nor plan to.
Any other questions? This gentleman at the back here.
This question's for all of you, I guess. When you calculate the release of CO2 and other detrimental environmental gases from your manufacturing process, do you transfer or calculate the emissions required to produce the electrical energy consumed in your manufacturing
Which one of you would like to take that first?
I think I'll have Letha answer that.
Letha, would you like to step up on the stage, dear? It was Joe.
I'm trying to think of how I can answer this question. So what you're asking is, do we link our footprint to CO2 footprint to usage of electricity? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir. Basically, because Duke produces 40% of their energy from coal-fired plants, the question is do you calculate the value of that carbon that's released by producing that electrical energy into your footprint based on how much energy you calculate in your production process? Because that is a carbon release. You're consuming that energy. So that is a carbon loading because you're consuming that electrical product. I don't know if you've even looked at that, but that was something to food for
We measure
thought.
our electricity usage per production hour. And as we try to reduce our hours in our product all the time, at the same time that gives us a challenge to continuously improve, because on top of that we try to set us stretch targets to improve our energy usage. So we measure directly in our plants our energy usage, and it is gas, electricity, and all this, directly to the operation, which is the hours we produce. So my good guess is that we could make this connection. I'm not personally aware that we do this.
And what I can respond to is that, one thing that I am aware of is that we measure the energy per engine, and we measure water usage per manpower hour, and not quite technically tuned into that exact measure that you're talking about, but we do measure it.
It's an interesting thought to start measuring that. Very good.
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. And some of our major CO2 reduction projects are related to turning things more into natural gas. So that obviously gets us away from the coal-fired electricity.
And do any of you have renewable energy programs either in place or on the horizon? I know particularly, Michael, with a 60-acre roof, you could produce several megawatts of electricity. But I wonder if any of y'all have those types of plans in your either short or long-range plan.
So I'll speak quickly. Right now, in our 5-year plan, we don't have any. We do have some places where we use solar to power lights in various locations and some of our sensors outside. But in terms of a renewable resource to feed back into the grid, we don't have that right now.
Yeah, and we don't all, we're focusing currently on a recyclable from a water perspective, but not from an energy sell-off perspective.
Could I get on your calendar?
Okay, we actually, we have 19 acres of roof. By the end of this year, we will have our own system in house to make renewable energy out of water. And we just purchased a company as a group to look after renewable energy in the product we sell. So, we will be able to use water to power our plant very soon.
Currently, we test diesel engines, and we run them through a test cycle in a dyno, and we're doing studies to determine what can we do with that power to turn it into energy. So we are currently doing some studies on it, but currently we're not.
Right?
Thank you for your comments. I was curious to all the panelists' take on how much paper is being used in your plant. Another way to relate sustainability back to trees is how much paper is being consumed. Is there a lot of, are you measuring that? Are you looking at ways of reducing paper waste and how you're capturing information?
Yes, I can say that was probably one of the early initiatives that we started with, was the usage of paper and being total electronic in our ways of communication. That is a constant one that we're trying to improve on.
On the other hand, paper is a renewable source. You can reuse it, and in a plant like us, we use a lot of returnable packaging. That is on the same time not always what you want, because that returnable packaging has to go back to the supplier, and if that is far away, that is not so good. So we have a good mix of this. Sometimes we use carton because it makes sense, and sometimes we have returnable packaging where it makes sense of, where the supplier is close to us. So we have a good combination.
I would say, from a Bridgestone standpoint, we have a lot of things that have gone electronic to reduce paper tickets in the plant. But to your point, to be transparent, we've never tracked specific paper use, how much we buy versus how much we used to buy. That'd be maybe a good KPI we could look at, Armin.
Thank you for your time today. Could you speak a little more about the decision process about which sustainability projects you undertake, how those decisions are made, who's involved, how you implement it across your team? Is it done by a specific department, or do you engage everyone early on? Maybe just share a little more insight about how you make it happen on the floor.
For us, it was easy in the beginning, and generally there's a lot of low-hanging fruit when you start out. Because we started out with our air compressors, because they consumed about 25% of the energy being used in our facility. And as we started to look at other variables, we knew that diesel fuel would be one, but we had a problem isolating whether we were consuming the diesel fuel in our testing process or in our engine building process. So we had to put some measurement systems in place to help determine which variables. And that's where our building management system came into play, because as we increased the amount of sensors, it gave us an opportunity to isolate where the usage is actually taking place. So that was really a key to us being able to fine tune by adding the more sensors in our facility.
Yeah, you're asking really how did we decide which ones to go after, right? So I'm going to say besides the low-hanging fruit, we had some big initiatives that were big dollar capital items, and the biggest one was our chiller. We had a lot of HVAC units on the top of our roof that were really at the end of their life, and so the justification was strong, but it was such a high capital investment of 10 million, Letha, to do, that we really had to get our corporate support behind it, because it wasn't something we could tackle ourselves. And really that was one that went through, and that has had our biggest impact to reduce our greenhouse gases, is that new chiller that we have in our factory. So sometimes it takes the big investment beyond the low-hanging fruit items.
It's a bit the same as us. When we do big investments, we need corporate to make that decision. And as a plant, you have to make a good story, and if there is a return on it, and it doesn't just need to be money, you get it sorted. But the other side of it, the other end of the side of it, is we use our neighbors, our people on the shop floor, to come up with smaller investments, and we can make that decision in-house. And because you bring that back to the shop floor, the execution of that initiative generally goes very quick. So, two ends of it.
Joe, the only thing I didn't hear any of you touch on, just curious about, are any of you tracking, do you have any KPIs for your transportation, your supply chain? Just curious, each of you could elaborate on what you're currently doing upstream as well as downstream as well.
I can answer that probably. We use a provider for our transportation for our products to the customer and materials to the plant, and this company SIVA tracks all that, and we get regular reports about improvements in that. So our service provider does this for us, and they're very good at it.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm looking at Gru, but I don't know that we have anybody tracking vendors that deliver.
We do, but it hadn't gotten the plant managers yet.
Okay.
And we do from a corporate
It's a secret.
perspective, from a supply chain, but not as much involvement at the local plant level.
You know, other than, I know we're very involved in reusable packaging, and And like Wim said, that has a trade-off. You have to send something back, but really more in the reduction of packaging, so we don't have to do that.
You gentlemen obviously have very successful programs, and it's taken years to put these things in place. Perhaps there's some companies out here that are about to embark in a sustainability program. From your vantage point, what would be the first top 3 things they should do to get started in the process?
I would say awareness. So putting numbers out and explaining where you stand today, and then explain how certain processes in your factory influence your energy usage or things like that. I think that's what I would use as the first step.
I would suggest partnering with the various organizations that are available, including us. I mean, we're willing to work with any facility that wants to embark on it and share our learnings.
Well, this may go back to a time honored, but if you're here and you're representing and you're the environmental engineer and you don't have your plant leader on board, you won't go anywhere. And plant leaders understand numbers, and if you need help selling that story, you got to sell that story. And once you get your plant leader involved or your corporate leader, that breaks down so many barriers, and it won't be smooth, but it will be smoother.
If you don't mind, I'm going to ask a question on that, because that's very specific to what we're finding out in the industry at the moment, is the fact that this is being led.
You can't hear.
That makes a change, Bill.
Can you hear me now? What we're seeing is that a lot of the initiatives, certainly from the bigger global companies, but we're now sitting in the mid-tier section as well within manufacturing North Carolina, is being driven from the very top, which is why it's such a pleasure to have Greer here from Bridgestone's head office in Tennessee that represents the Americas, and I know Greer puts a bit of mileage on the global clock as well. Could you just give us a little bit of background of what that actually looks like and how that's been driven down to plant level? Because we're seeing more and more corporations actually stating goals, 5%, 10%, 15% reduction on water, energy, waste. How does that get translated down to the plant? Is that just a flat number that's given to you as a plant manager, and then you hand it off to the likes of Letha and Irma, in the case of Bridgestone? Or is that something that's in relation to what Greer does as well? Is there a participation from corporate helping you to set those goals? And I'm going to address that to Michael.
You kind of answered the question, right? It's all of those.
Right.
Our Bridgestone corporate sets that target, right, for 20% CO2 reduction by 2020. Well, that's just this number in the ether, right, until we turn it into real projects like the chiller and other things. And how do we, what is our current CO2? Okay, what did 20% look like? What is it going to take to do? And then once we as a plant analyze those, if it's steam leaks or all these different things that can lead to that, then Greer and his team will help us either find solutions to break through those or help us get the money to make those investments to achieve those numbers.
Cool.
I believe benchmarking is one of the best things to do. If you know what even industries or companies that don't have anything to do with your industry, you can use them as a benchmark for improvement. And I always use the example is if the waiting time in the hospital, which is generally not very good, as I experienced again last week. If they would go and look at the hotel lobby of how they manage customers, that might change the world in the hospital of waiting time. So take this example and use that for what you do in your factory. Go and have a look at a totally different industry before you do things like this. That's what I think would help.
I can only agree with what they've said, but I guess what comes to mind with me is measuring, being capable of measuring. If you can't measure it, it's that feel, right?
Definitely.
And again, just to put some perspective behind that, it just happens to be synchronistically coincidental that last night, again at NC State, which put on a lot of good programs, there was a speaker at Pool Management, a school of business from John Deere, who was the global head of EHS, who's just laterally had sustainability tacked onto a title as well. We have been in correspondence obviously with Greece, so we have an understanding of what Bridgestone's doing there. And at NMHG, we've had a strong relationship with Don Buckman, who's your America's EHS. Is there a potential going forward for the likes of people at that corporate level to do what we're doing today, which is collaboration and sharing best practices, as long as it's not in a competitive environment? And I know you're not on the panel, Greg, but I'm going to open that up to you first, sir.
I'll try to run a mic or something. I'm a little embarrassed by all this, but since then Secretary Vandervaart started it, and there's nothing you can do when the head of DENR, points you out except kind of smile, grin, and bear it, right? The answer is yes, at a corporate level. In fact, in particular with Coca-Cola, we have started a series, and this afternoon I was going to invite everybody to the one that we'll be doing in Nashville on April 8th. We've started with Coca-Cola in Bridgestone and a national not-for-profit group called the River Network, some very focused workshops on how to identify the water-focused community outreach that fits and leverages your company's specific strengths and your community's specific needs the best. And so that's exactly where we are at a corporate level, kind of looking to share and hold each other accountable for pushing the ball forward at that corporate global level, where we know at the plant level, the performance, where the rubber really meets the road, if you will, the performance gets rolled up and gets put all together. And then as industry, we roll all of our sister industries together, and we start doing what Dr. Stevens, Rusty Stevens here at Wilson Community College says, which is it's industry's job, and they're doing it, to lead the communities towards sustainability. And so yeah, we're doing that at the corporate level, in particular with Coca-Cola.
Any other questions?
Gentlemen, thank you for sharing and talking about your best practices. I was wondering if you could talk about going forward, what sort of challenges are you facing? And specifically, if you could talk about in terms of wastewater management, industrial wastewater management.
I know that Greer specifically in his workshops when we talk about wastewater management and Bridgestone, but I'm going to speak to a different kind of challenge going forward, and I think one of the challenges is as we grow the recycling and then more and more people get on board, that's going to be great, but it's going to get tougher from a pricing standpoint and suppliers and outlets for all the things. I think that's one of the bigger good problems that we all need to collectively solve going forward.
There are three members out of my team here that probably answer this question better than I can. But wastewater in general, if you do something with it and you take the waste out of it, it becomes water again. So I assume that's where your opportunity is. Find something to, whatever you use in your plant in the form of water. See if you can, sometimes things can be very simple. Reuse it again. But with 90 or 60 acres of roof, you must be having a lot of water in North Carolina. I've noticed that people promise me nice weather.
One of the innovative things that our new plant in Aiken, South Carolina has done with their new facilities, they've created a water harvesting, a pond, I guess where you'd call it, and really all their rainwater gets collected. That goes through a sand filtration system, comes back in and fuels their boiler. So it's a complete system that they've been able to, with a new facility, do, and it's really innovative and revolutionary.
On behalf of the John Deere was a very fascinating presentation yesterday from their global head, and she said again the leadership from above was that they'd done some brainstorming to find out the specific areas that they wanted to target to bring down their environmental footprint, and water was a key one for John Deere as well globally. They'd originally tasked plants in areas that had a water problem, and then somebody within the C-suite basically said, well, if we're going to do it in one plant, we might as well do it in them all, and the significant upside of that was felt across their entire corporate footprint. So we are certainly witnessing this, as Greer said, on a sort of an increased basis, is that corporate and plant leadership as in unison for driving these goals into the plants for the benefit of themselves and the community. And I'm going to raise this as our last. Any last questions? So I want to be conscious of the time. This lady here. Oh, sorry, sir.
So, you guys are doing great work. I appreciate you sharing with us today. You talked a lot about dollars and cents and, you know, saving money in your process. What other drivers are there pushing you to do more for sustainability? For example, is there consumer? Do we see global consumer demand as being another primary reason for this? What other things are driving this besides just dollars and cents?
From our corporate responsibility perspective, it's just the right thing to do. I mean, it's sort of cut and dry, just the right thing to do.
And for me, it's waking up every morning and thinking the weather is changing. So we need to do something.
You know, one of the big reasons when we were kind of talking about this event was from a Bridgestone standpoint, we wanted to share. We want others to be on board with us for all those reasons, the future generations' reasons, the current climate, our communities, but ultimately as leaders, we want to become leaders of other leaders, and for all those reasons.
One last question, real quick. Michael? For the plant in South Carolina, when they put the water in the sand and filter it, are they going to go after those chemicals that collect in the sand and recycle those?
That's a question for Greer in the next workshop.
Any further? Anna Mangum from E3.
Thank you. Anna Mangum from NC State Industrial Extension Service. Again, commend the three of you for your leadership in this space. Certainly great examples to follow for the other manufacturers in the region and the state. But my question to you is about culture. What in the sustainability space, if any, how has that affected or influenced the culture within your local organizations? How has that impacted employee engagement and even employee recruitment?
One example I can give is that we conduct safety, environmental, and energy audits, and we randomly choose areas of the plant. And when we first started, we started auditing the trash can. I mean, just minor things, right? And just the attitudes of our employees have made a complete turnaround in how they operate. It's really hard to describe, but it has made a culture difference, and I can see it in the way that the employees operate and how we use the recyclable funds for the recreation committee, and all kinds of things. Creativity that's been brought about, and it's obvious overall the approach and how it has affected the employees on a personal basis.
In our plant, it can be a simple sign. It can be as simple as recycling the waste out of our canteen. As to in the weekly waste walks, look at leaks, air leaks in our tools. And if you do that on a weekly basis and you educate people what that actually drives, you change a lot. So it's knowledge-based, I think, and education, and bring the ownership back to the neighborhoods as we do in our factory.
And you mentioned recruitment, but one of the elements I would call pride. Pride in what your company's doing, pride in how your plant looks, that engages your culture to continue that. When it's a clean area, you want to keep it clean. If it's messy, you're maybe not as excited. I'd love to tell you that every team member will put their aluminum can in the aluminum recycling, but we're not there yet. And that's something that Irma and I work on from a culture standpoint. But the closer we get to it, the more people will naturally do that. I like to use the phrase, we need to make the right choice, the easy choice, and people will do it. When they have to struggle to recycle or to take whatever it is, then we need to make those containers where they're necessary, and people will follow.
Just learn something again. Very good.
Okay, any one last question before we move on to the next stage? This gentleman here.
I was just curious.
Just please the microphone, sir.
Sorry. I was just curious as kind of at Michael, I guess. You had said 26 tons a day was to incineration, or was that
No, 26,
overall
26
waste?
tons is all the form, from everything from cafeteria waste to our rubber to all the forms of waste.
Okay. And when you got to that number, at what point do you decide you start putting dates out there as goals for zero waste to landfill? Because we've made strides in our planning, but now I'm starting to get the question, when are you going to go to zero waste to landfill? And I just keep flipping off. You know, I don't want to make any commitments on that, but is there a magic number that you were at this and 50% of, you know, your 2002 number, I noticed you went 50% down. Was that a, you know, is there some kind of rule of thumb that somebody can maybe suggest?
Wow, I can just tell you about our journey, and to some degree, some of those were mutually exclusive. Our efforts to reduce waste internal to plant from 6% down to where we're at, just below 3%, was more of a cost generator, right? We're throwing something away that could be a product that's going downstream. Zero waste to landfill is a little bit different. It's kind of saying, of the waste we make, we want to make sure it doesn't go to landfill. There's a better use for it. You know, so they're related, but they don't have to be. You can be reducing waste every day, as all of us do, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to not send it to the landfill. That becomes more of a conscious choice as a company to say, we're going for it. What does that take? And for us, one key thing is a partner that can find places for those outlets to make. If you're 50% landfill, you know, it's a bigger leap. There may not be those products out there. There are companies that will buy your items or take them. So we're fortunate. The Waste Management's creative. They're a big company. They've been able to find a lot of people that will use our products. I'm sure that there is an industry out here that doesn't have somebody that will buy what their waste is and turn it into something else. So I would say partnership, and really just, if you guys go for it, that's where the commitment and the leadership comes in.
And it's definitely a continuous journey, because we had a process where we had one item that we could not find, and we found someone, and then shortly after that they went out of business. So you know, it can be a journey, you know, something that you may not reach perfection, but you've got to continue to go toward the zero process.
I come out of a country with 18 million people. By the way, it's 4 times smaller than North Carolina, so it's a very small country, the Netherlands. We don't have, as far as I know, any landfill anymore in that country. There are electricity plants generating electricity out of household waste. There is also systems to separate your waste, even to the point where even the separation is now more expensive, and sometimes they put it together again later to burn it in an electricity plant. To the point where the plant in Nijmegen, and it's an very old plant, is now connecting up to a residual heat pipeline out of that electricity plant to heat the factory. So, you know, it is possible to have zero landfill and actually gain even more out of that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for the number of questions today. I'm just going to finish by saying we've mentioned or referenced leadership throughout. I'm going to reference actually back to a conversation or interaction I had with Greer in the early stages of the planning for this event, when he pulled me up, if you remember, Greer, on calling Bridgestone a champion. So they were world-class in what they do, because they've got these world-class certifications, as Cummins have as well. And Greer said the champion gives the wrong connotation, because that implies competition. So I'm going to end on this by saying I feel it's actual privilege to be on the stage with what I now regard as leaders in sustainability. With leaders, there's no second and third place. With champions, there is. So there's no gold, silver or bronze to be handed out to these gentlemen today. They represent 3 major corporations, the 3 major plants that operate in our state. And they're all leaders in their own right, as are the corporate organisations. And I'd just like to